Hello, Cougars. This is a video for 5th grade. We're going to start working on our Earth Sciences book. I made a little sample here. Mine says Earth Spheres by Mrs. B. And I put a little picture of the Earth. You can do whatever you would like on yours. But this is what we're going to be making together, okay? So when we talk about the Earth and Earth's spheres, before we go on, this is my very first video. I'm going to get better as we go along, so just be a little kind to me. Okay, so the very first thing is when we talk about the Earth is a system of interrelated parts, and it has 4 parts. It has the biosphere, it has the geosphere, it has the hydrosphere, and the atmosphere, and all of those 4 parts work together to make one complete Earth system, okay? So we're going to talk today about the biosphere and the geosphere. Remember to go back and watch Crash Course for Kids, part 1 on the geosphere and the biosphere. It'll give you a good little summary and it'll help you remember some of the different examples. Okay, so we're going to talk about the biosphere. And biosphere, bio means life. And so the biosphere is all parts of the Earth that have living things. All living things on Earth are part of the biosphere, okay? So, wow, there's a lot of things on Earth that are living. And when we think about it, a lot of times people think just of plants and animals. But there are so many more things that are living than just plants and animals. There's bacteria, okay? There's 2 different kinds of bacteria. And most bacteria is good. We think of like, oh, we got to wash our hands to make sure we don't have any bacteria. But most bacteria is good. We can't digest our food. We've got bacteria in our mouth. Most of it is good. There's some bad bacteria, and we don't want to have that. Protists. So bacteria are very small single-celled organisms. Protists are slightly bigger organisms and multi-celled organisms. Fungi, like mushrooms and mold and slimes, they're all fungi. Plants, we'll talk about plants a little bit more, and animals, like us. We are an animal. So now we're going to talk a little bit about plants. Okay, plants. When we talk about plants, there are 2 main types of plants. There are non-vascular plants. Non-vascular plants are plants that are so small and they don't have any way to have water and nutrients spread throughout the plant. As a result, they're very small. They don't have a way to have water and food go throughout the whole thing, the organism. So they're called non-vascular plants. Things like moss and lichen, very small. Then we have vascular plants, and in vascular plants, they are plants that have tubes. Do you remember when we did the celery experiment in maybe 2nd grade? And we put the celery in red food coloring, and we saw the water go up through the celery. So those are the tubes of the celery. It's called the xylem. Xylem takes water up from the roots, and phloem takes the food from the leaves down to the rest of the plant. So xylem up and phloem down. So vascular plants can be bigger because they have a way of moving food and water around the plant. Then vascular plants can be separated into 2 groups, seeded plants and non-seeded plants. So plants that make fruit and plants that don't make fruit, okay? All right, so we've got plants, and remember, plants are the beginning of the food chain. So they're really important. They capture the energy from the sun, they transform energy into matter, and then we can eat it, right? They store energy for us. Not just for us, but for other animals too. Then we've got animals, right? We are an animal. Animals can be broken into 2 main categories, vertebrates and invertebrates. Animals that are vertebrates have a backbone. So feel your back, feel your neck. You can feel that you have a backbone. That's your vertebrate, okay? So mammals, reptiles, amphibians, birds, fish, all of them are vertebrates. They have a bone structure inside their body, okay? Then we have invertebrates. Invertebrate means that they have an exoskeleton. Exo meaning outside. They don't have bones inside their body. They have their bone on the outside, like insects, right? An insect has jointed legs, so it's called an arthropod. Have you ever heard of arthritis? People get stuff in their joints. So arthropod is a jointed foot, something that has joints. So insects, spiders, lobster, crayfish, all of those things have joints. They're called arthropods, and they're all invertebrates. Mollusks, things like snails and seafood that has a shell in like a scallops in the ocean. Those are mollusks. Annelids, things like worms, okay? So they don't have a shell. They're very soft. And then we have cnidaria. Cnidaria are things like jellyfish and corals. I think corals are part of that too. So these are all invertebrates, and these are all vertebrates. So in terms of your book, in terms of the biosphere, you can do anything that you would like in the biosphere. You need to give me an example. So I made a little thing about plants, very simple thing. I drew a picture of a tree. I labeled the roots and the stem and the leaves. I could put some fruit on it if I wanted to. And then I talked a little bit about the biosphere because I chose plants. And I said plants are producers. Talking a little bit about the food chain there. They take energy from the sun and turn it into stored energy or food. This is called photosynthesis. Plants are at the beginning of the food chain. Plants create oxygen as a waste product of photosynthesis. Animals breathe in oxygen and exhale carbon dioxide. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide through their stomata. Remember the stomata? This is a symbiotic relationship. So this is what I have done for the biosphere. You can do whatever you would like to do for the biosphere. Let's say you want to talk about the life cycle of a particular animal. You could do that. And you could draw a picture about that, and then you could tell me about it. You don't have to have just one page. You can have more than one page if you would like. You could talk about plants. You could talk about animals. You could talk about a food chain. You could talk about one specific animal and how they are important to the biosphere. You can talk about anything you would like, but you need to tell me something about one of those things. You could need to tell me something about fungus or bacteria or protists or plants or animals or how they all fit together. The biosphere. That's one of the things I'm looking for in the biosphere. Okay, the next section that we're going to talk about is the geosphere. As you guys know, one of my favorites because I am a geologist. Okay, the geosphere. Geo means earth. So the geosphere is all the rocks, minerals, magma, lava, soil, everything that makes up the earth, right? So no living things. If it's living, it's not part of the geosphere. If it's rocks, it's not part of the biosphere. So today we're really talking about two spheres, biosphere, geosphere. Okay, the geosphere. Let's talk a little bit about the earth. Here we did this a lot in 4th grade, talking about the structure of the earth, right? So the inner core is a solid iron and nickel core. It's as hot as the surface of the sun, about 10 to 15,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The outer core is a liquid iron and nickel core, and the inner core spins inside the outer core. Many people, scientists believe that the reason that we have a magnetic field surrounding our planet is because of this interaction between the solid inner core and the liquid outer core. It creates this magnetic field which protects us from the sun's solar wind, these charged particles. And that's why we have the aurora borealis, northern lights, southern lights, because as the sun's solar wind and charged particles interact with the Earth's magnetic field, it creates these beautiful colors. It's fantastic. The next part of the Earth is the mantle. So the mantle is the largest part of the earth, and it is partly solid rock and partly very mashed potato rock, magma. Some of it's very melted, but it can be very soft. That's the largest part. And then we have the crust. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about, remember we talked about how inside the mantle there are these convection currents. Hot things rise and cool things sink. Hot things rise and cold things sink. So because the core is so hot, it transfers some of its heat energy to the mantle. The mantle gets hot, the hot rock, not really rock anymore because it's kind of liquidy, rises up to the outer part of the crust, and then it starts to cool and it sinks back down. And this is called a convection current. And the convection currents are part of the reason why we have earthquakes. It's also part of the reason why we have volcanoes. So here we've got the structure of the earth. So if you wanted to do something in the geosphere, the next page in your book, you could do something about plate tectonics. You could write something about the Earth's magnetic field and why we have the northern lights. You could tell me something about fossils, because they're part of the Earth, right? You could tell me something about maybe your 5 favorite minerals. You could tell me about the 3 different types of rocks, sedimentary rocks, igneous rocks, metamorphic rocks. You could talk about the rock cycle. You can do some research on it by watching Brain Pop videos, or we've talked about a lot of this in 4th grade. So if you need, you might be able to go back and look at some of your notes. But you can look at, for Brain Pop, they have a whole bunch of things about different types of rocks. And in the crash course for kids, they have a lot of things as well. So anyway, today we talked about our book, Earth Spheres, okay? This week, you need to do the Biosphere and the Geosphere. Next week, we're gonna talk about the atmosphere and the hydrosphere. Then we're going to do a summary about how all of these things interact. And then after that, we're gonna start paying attention. We're gonna start focusing on the solar system, the sun, and the planets in our solar system, okay? I'm looking forward to staying in touch with you guys. I'm sorry that you are getting my first video and that I'm probably gonna be getting better. But you know what? I thought of you guys first, and I thought you guys it'd be a lot of fun to do this with you. Okay, take care, Cougars! Go Cougars!